Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to our next episode with fractions. Today we're going to be talking about simplifying fractions, and in order to do so, we're going to be talking more about those greatest common factors. So let's take a look at our first example. We need to take 18/63 and simplify it. So that means that I need to list the factors of 18 and the factors of 63. I know that 18 times 1 is 18, that 2 times 9 is 18, that 3 times 6 is 18, 6 times 3 is 18, and 9 times 2 is 18. And for 63, I know that 3 times 21 is 63, that 7 times 9 is 63, and that 21 times 3 is 63. This is where you've got to know those multiplication facts. If you don't, it's going to hurt you. So now I need to go through my list and find the greatest number that these two lists of factors have in common, which is 9 and 9. So I'm going to divide my numerator and my denominator by 9. 18 divided by 9 is 2, and 63 divided by 9 is 7. So my new equivalent simplified fraction is 2/7. Now, simplifying fractions is simply putting a fraction into its most simple form, because 2/7 is a whole lot easier to imagine, to draw, to create than 18/63. I mean, if you want to sit down and draw out a fraction strip and break it into 63 pieces and then shade 18 of them, go for it if that makes you happy. But if you can simplify this fraction and write a fraction strip that's 2 shaded out of 7, that's going to be a whole lot easier. So when you're simplifying fractions, you are making them into their most simple form in order to make them easier to work with. Let's take a look at our next example. It is 19 out of 21. 19/21. So if I'm listing the factors of 19 and the factors of 21, oh, and I also missed the 1 could be in there. We know that we can multiply each number by 1, but again, if we're trying to simplify, dividing anything by 1 is not going to get you anywhere. I cannot multiply 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, or 18 by a whole number that would equal 19. So my only factors are 1 and 19. Now let's take a look at 21. I know that I cannot multiply 2 by anything, but 3 times 7 does equal 21. So I have the factors of 1, 3, and 7. And just for kicks, we can add the 21 on the end. Okay? So again, we need to find the greatest number that they have in common to simplify them. But wait, what do you do when the 1 is the biggest common or the greatest common factor that they have? That simply means that your fraction is already in its simplest form. If there is not a factor greater than 1 that you can divide the numerator and the denominator by, then it is in its simplest form. All right, let's take a look at our last example this morning. This one's going to make you think quite a bit more, so I'm going to turn this to the side a bit. I'm going to start by writing our fraction, which is 210 out of 240. So let's just say that you've got these big numbers and you're like, okay, if I sit down and I start writing out these factors, this is going to take me forever, Ms. Pike. So I'm going to think about this a little differently. Well, if I know that any number that ends in 0 is divisible by 5, and it's also divisible by 2, I'm going to go ahead and divide by 5 because the bigger number that I'm dividing by, the quicker this is going to go. So I'm going to divide my numerator and my denominator by 5. You're like, again, Miss Pike, got some issues here. That's pretty big division, in which I'm going to say to you, yes, but you know how to do long division because y'all showed great mastery of it during the test, so let's use the skills that you've got. My cookie thief is going to an apartment complex. He looks in the first window and he sees that there are only 2 cookies in the first apartment. He cannot steal any, so he takes no cookies. He watches as 2 cookies escape next door. He circles the building, looks in the second apartment, and he says, yes, I can steal 4 sets. And as he steals his 20 cookies, he watches as 1 runs away next door. Circles the building again. He gets excited because he knows that he can steal 2 sets, which means he steals all 10 cookies, which means that no cookies are left. So this means that 210 divided by 5 is 42. That's a more manageable number. Definitely more manageable. So now we need to divide 5 into 240. Can't take anything from the first apartment. 2 cookies get away. He's able to steal 4 sets from the second apartment. 4 cookies get away. And he's able to steal 8 sets from the last apartment, which means he steals all of the cookies and none get away. So now we're down to 42 48s. These are now more manageable numbers. But let's say that you're not confident with these facts. Well, I know that I can still divide 42 by 2 and 48 divided by 2. Well, if 40 divided by 2 is 20 and 2 divided by 2 is 1, there's our partial quotients, that would be 21. 40 divided by 2 is 20. 8 divided by 2 is 4, so 24. Now we're down to 21 24ths. I can still divide this down further and make it even more simple. So let's do that. I'm going to bring my continued fraction down here. And if I'm looking at this, I know that 21 has the factors of 1, 3, 7, and 21. And 24 has the factors of 2, 3, 4, 6, 12, and 24. So now my greatest common factor is 3. So I'm going to divide my numerator and my denominator by 3. 21 divided by 3 is 7. 24 divided by 3 is 8. So our final simplified fraction is 7/8 because we can only divide both of these by 1. Their factors are now 1 and 7 and 1 and 8, which means that the greatest common factor is 1, so therefore this is now in simplest form. Now, if you think about it, truthfully, the previous lesson we were talking about making equivalent fractions, and that's essentially what we're doing. We're using division to create an equivalent fraction that's easier to manage. So I hope that everyone has a great day. If you have any questions, please let me know, and we'll be pulling small groups to talk about this in more detail. Have a great day, everybody.